brothers, tourists, and ladies, to another episode of The Chapter House, the Old Glory Club's look into the chapters and men who make up the Old Glory Club. Joining us tonight is the Painted Sky Society out of Arizona, the great desert state. And representing that state is Mr. Adam Standish. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I am peachy keen on this. It's very hot and sticky where I am right now, so feels like summer. But besides Mr. Standish, we've also got Ben Wade. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's great. I've never been to Arizona. I know I had a half aunt who moved out there in her twilight years. She said it was very dry. For anybody who hasn't been to Arizona, because I imagine this might be like a kind of an inside thing, why the Painted Sky Society? Why that name?
I can take that one. I think since it was sort of it was a group effort, but it was sort of my submission for the name when we were taking submissions. Just kind of, Arizona's known for its like absolutely glorious sunsets and sunrises. There's actually a great artist that does them justice named Mark Maggiore. I think it's a Frenchman, unfortunately, but the frog moved to New Mexico and he's made a lot of good watercolor on canvas paintings of like Arizona and southwestern sunsets and things. And I think that they're pretty close to photorealistic. They might seem exaggerated, but they're really not. If you've never been here and caught a sunset, then you ought to. It's when God breaks out his own watercolor paintbrushes and goes to work.
Yeah, wait, hold on now. Let's not hate on the French. They did give us butter, which I believe was not invented until the French put it in food. So. It looks like we have a third representative of the Painted Sky Society joining us, Mr. Priory of Avalon. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
I appreciate the throwback to the original Snorlax. That's exactly what I feel like now that I haven't been able to do any exercise owing to a newborn baby.
I've had to get good with Pokemon because I have 3 kids. And they love Pokemon, so whilst my original decks are gone, I basically had to relearn and start over from scratch. So, the props on first gen Snorlax.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I know that Thomas777, our good friend, accuses the Zoomers of wanting to have sex with Snorlax. I don't know what that's all about, but hopefully that isn't an affliction that any of your kids fall down the rabbit hole with.
As the representative in the chat for the Zoomer generation, I resent that remark, and I disavow any of my peers who would resemble that remark, good sir.
All right, well, that's the OGC official line. No sexual thoughts about Pokemon. But getting back to the Painted Sky Society, Montana is called Big Sky, and I've actually been to Montana. I used to laugh at the name, and then I got there. And the sky is huge, so I completely get it. So I imagine that. I've been meaning to tour the Southwest, so Arizona is definitely an area that I have to get down to. Speaking of areas in Arizona, where are you guys mostly centered around?
We're mostly in Phoenix.
Go ahead, Ben.
We do have a handful of guys in Tucson, and then a couple scattered throughout the rest of the state.
Yeah, a lot like SoCal. Phoenix Metro is just like this vast expanse of different exurbs and suburbs and metro, like cities unto themselves, but still within the metro area. So I think our furthest member that's still technically in the Phoenix metro area from me is probably like 70 miles. So he's still like technically in like the gray that makes up Phoenix on a map, but not at all close. So it can be a challenge logistically getting everybody together, but everybody makes a really good effort.
We have quite a few members coming from Tucson. In fact, I'd say we're getting more and more newer recruits from that area. Uh,
hmm Yeah, that's Flagstaff has its own slew of issues. I mean, finding the right kind of people. I think that our kind of media, our circles, just have a hard time getting a foothold up there, as it were. I mean, Northern Arizona University is one of the most liberal universities in the country, and it's Flagstaff is just an odd town. So
Is
Really pretty though.
that the area
Very pretty.
of the state where you guys have skiing?
Yes. Ironically, we have some down by Tucson too.
Yep, on Mount Lemon.
Yep.
Mount Lemon?
Yes, so that's one of my favorite parts about Arizona is like in 2 hours in any cardinal direction from the center of the state or from the capital, you can end up in a biome that's entirely different from anything you'd expect. So, like in Flagstaff, you get the Colorado Plateau, which is the kind of the tail end of the Rocky Mountains coming down, and then in the southern half of the state near Tucson and where Mount Lemon is situated, which is just outside of Tucson. It's like it's 15 minutes from Tucson. We have what's called Sky Islands, which are completely isolated, prominent mountains that kind of sprout out of the ground that go from nearly sea level all the way up to like 11,000 feet, I think is where around Mount Lemon is at. And there's tons and tons of them there. And you can go from like desert scrub with saguaro cacti and stuff on the bottom to pine forest and aspen groves on the top in an hour and a half drive up the mountain. And like the species of animals and things and wildlife that live on the mountains are found nowhere else, not even on other mountains in Arizona, because they can't find their way across the desert to get to another one. It's fascinating. If you're into nature, like outdoors, like Southern Arizona and the unique like ecology and biomes that we have to offer are incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Sorry, keep going.
I was just saying, a fun fact about the ecology in Arizona is actually the most ecologically diverse non-coastal state in the union.
Yeah, I didn't. When I think of Arizona, I just think of like hot and dry and not much else. It's kind of interesting you guys have that kind of a diversity of biome. I guess I've never really looked into it. You said that Flagstaff's like kind of a liberal area. I know that I had a cousin who himself was a shit lib who was a ski instructor in Arizona. So that's where I assume he ended up.
Up in Snowball.
But you're saying that there's multiple places that you can ski in Arizona?
Yep.
Yeah, quite a few actually. Yeah,
there's even a third one closer to the Four Corners area called Sunrise. And that one normally doesn't get nearly as many people as Flagstaff. Flagstaff is it's a zoo. It's just crawling with people. So I don't even go there anymore. Try to go to the other places.
Flagstaff is full of crunchy granola people. They mean well for the most part. I think they're like a subspecies of the Portland people, except less aggressive. The last actual friend I had that was from Flagstaff was my wife's lesbian roommate who came to live with us because her family disowned her for being new. I shit you not. She lived with us for 5 years. She was exactly what you would think a crunchy granola, somewhat liberal, thin, fit lesbian gal would
drives a Subaru.
Yes.
Did she sell crystals and tea?
No, we're talking a hard atheist here.
Yeah, you definitely. Flagstaff is one of those towns where you still have some of the older holdouts, where you still got some actual rural hicks going on and like real cowboy culture, but then the actual city itself has been dominated and kind of gentrified. Like it kind of got one-shotted by the millennial hipster gentrification, and then the type of millennial hipster that moved there was the crunchy granola, like Ari. I always tell people you can kind of segregate outdoors people into two different categories: the REI co-op shopper or the Bass Pro Shops shopper. And Flagstaff is definitely an REI town, where it's the barefoot hiking shoes, or the toe sandals, walking around town, or walking around barefoot at the park. And like you'll see girls with armpit hair and stuff on the college campus and
Oh
whatnot.
no! Wait! Hold on!
Yeah, there's some hippie culture going on.
There's a chance that Christopher Sandbatch might listen to this episode, and I don't want to give him any excuse to move to Flagstaff, Arizona.
You know what though?
Don't go to
None
the
of
park
those
and pick
things.
up crystals, okay? So
But
It's
none
there.
of those things detract from the absolute stunning beauty of that part of the state. It's
Correct.
incredible, and it's 45 minutes from the Grand Canyon. Like it's stunning. It's stunning up there. I love going up there. The weather is perfect.
I'm up there once a month, despite how much I just ragged on it, because it's a great place to be.
Mhm.
So I'm looking
that
at
and Flagstaff. That and
go ahead.
Flagstaff doesn't suffer from the same kind of diversity, quote unquote, that the southern half of the state does. So like I think if you look at the demographics of Flag, there's probably like 15% native, and then the rest is white practically. So it's still a clean city. They don't have as many homeless, and there's not a ton of crime at all. So. It's like a Vermont situation where it's like it's a shit-lib city, but it's a functional shit-lib city, and it's beautiful and it's great to go visit. But it is what it is. Politics notwithstanding, it's awesome.
I mean, that's interesting. So I'm looking at the satellite images of Flagstaff, and it's got that kind of suburban hell look to it, and you're saying that it is majority white. I think that's really the only time that sort of thing works. That's kind of a throwback, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's an old city too, for sure. I think, Ben, you can correct me on that, but it wasn't 1880s that Flagstaff was founded, somewhere around there, like 82?
Yeah, it was around that time, and it was for mostly logging back in the day.
Mm-hmm. And then another cool town is Prescott, which was actually the territorial capital and the state capital before Phoenix back in the day.
And the Prescott locals will not let you forget that it was the capital of the old territory. And Prescott is 10 times better than Flag. Prescott is amazing.
Yeah.
There is nothing better than Prescott in the state. That's literally my favorite place to go.
Is that also a French? Is that a French settlement?
No.
That one.
No, I think it's mostly English, I think. But no, and the French comment I made earlier was just that a painter that's still around. He's a contemporary painter. He moved from France to New Mexico, and he paints great art of Arizona and New Mexico. That's all.
The reason I ask is because there's a Prescott pretty far up in Maine, and I know Prescott doesn't sound French, but I mean, everything up there is French. Anyway, so Prescott is gorgeous and less shit-libby.
Yeah, you don't call it Prescott, though. Then they'll know you're a tourist. The tip for any of our guys that want to come visit, it's Prescott. Not Prescott. But it's got all the best parts of Flagstaff and not as many of the bad. It's kind of like their main street is almost like a Nashville main street on Friday and Saturday nights, and it's home to the oldest rodeo in the United States. So to any of the other southwestern states, I'm looking at you, Texas and California, that want to claim that their cowboy culture is longer standing than ours. I'd like to point you to the Prescott Rodeo.
Do you guys have those mechanical bulls in all your bars out there?
We have real bulls in our bars.
Yeah,
we have real bulls in our bars, my friend.
Yeah, there is a place in a town north of Phoenix that it's pretty fun, and you can ride them too. And
there's two bars, Roadrunner and Buffalo Chip.
Yeah.
Well, so in the long march of history, looking forward, is Arizona one of those places where you think you guys can ride out the collapse of the U.S. federal government?
That's a difficult question to answer. I think so, because I think a lot of people, if that were to happen, a lot of people will leave. It is hot. It is inhospitable if you don't have air conditioning. I mean, the reason the population boom happened in the 1960s was, central heating and cooling in your home. And there is, we have a bunch of rivers, but they don't really flow. They, 3 of them are supposed to go through Phoenix area, but none of them flow through Phoenix anymore. I think a lot of people would leave in a hurry, and you would be left with, roving gangs of people, and those of us more in the rural areas to kind of just hunker down and do our thing.
I like to approach this question. First, I'm going to quote. Is it Peggy Hill? Phoenix is a testament to man's arrogance. Having lived out here for most of my life, and then traveling to a couple cities around the country and abroad, I have to say, the only other place that reminds me of Phoenix would be Dallas, I suppose. How it's just a sprawl that never seems to end in all directions.
Yeah, I mean, man, I'm looking at like Scottsdale right now. Holy crap! You want to talk about suburban hell? I've never seen houses configured.
Yeah, that's
like
all the
this.
rich boomers and other money people live. Those are full of NIMBYs and yuppies.
This is very interesting to me. So, the conception of the United States from the Europores is that we all live in these like hideous suburban nightmares, and it looks like that idea in their head is Phoenix.
Parts of it.
What accounts
yeah, definitely
for,
parts of it.
Well, I mean, I'm just clicking in random areas, and everything's just houses and houses, and what accounts for this?
I think a huge portion of it is on the one hand, Arizona grew so rapidly, and a huge majority of the homes that you're going to look at are under 60 years old. They've all been built, and then even more than that, I mean, we've seen, if you look at the trend line of the new construction suburbs and exurbs that are going up in the Phoenix metro area and like surrounding cities. Like I'm further west from Phoenix, but like if you look at Buckeye, Arizona is a perfect example. It's down the road from me a ways. Buckeye was, for like 3 years running, it may still have it. It was the fastest growing city in the United States. And it's because for a long time land was cheap here, and there was enough jobs moving in to supply like the newcomers, and then building here is cheap. Our permitting process and things like that lend themselves better than California or other southern state or southwestern states to putting up a house. And then on top of that, you have the explosion in emigration from California and the other like coastal states to Arizona, because it's not as big of a move or as big of an ask as like the Midwest. They don't have to, like, someone moving from LA can sell their townhome for $2 million and buy a McMansion for cash in Arizona and make as much money working their remote job. In COVID, you saw this a lot. Like in the town that I grew up in, which is pretty far outside of Phoenix proper, in the 6 years since COVID, I think the community that I grew up and went to high school in has seen probably 2,000 new single-family homes be built to supply. And there's people, it's still not enough for the amount of people that have moved here. Like there's still a lot of houses in escrow and things like that, and people that are kind of investing in or paying for properties that are getting built. And then you have this issue too, where like down south, Ben would be a good person to talk to this about, where in like Casa Grande, there's been planned communities that they started breaking ground on, were accepting purchases for new build homes, and then holding the money in escrow and things. And then they find out, oh, actually, we don't have enough water to build this community. So we're just it's like, we bought all this land and we started breaking ground on these buildings. And then the city or the state came back and said, actually, you're not approved because it's going to take too much water and the aquifers won't support it. So your exurb is null and void. So have fun explaining that to all of your investors and prospective homeowners from the Bay Area and in California that they don't get their house anymore, So the explosion in real estate is I think the real estate bubble of all the places outside of maybe Texas, I think the Phoenix metro area is the perfect place to look at, in the same way that in 2008, like if you went to California, not California, if you went to like Florida, there were strippers that owned 3 homes, right? Like if you go to Phoenix, they're putting up homes they're putting up a house they have crews putting up a house in 2 weeks, and then that is scaled out. So they're putting up like 500 new homes a day all across the city. It's insane, man. It's insane.
I mean, it is kind of insane. I imagine this density is because this is the only place you can find water in this in the desert. Now, you said that none of the rivers run through Phoenix anymore. I see the Salt River here. It looks like it's dammed up. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's one of them. So it's dammed up just like northeast of Mesa. The Salt River, though, is a great time. It's part of the 7 reservoirs. If you keep following that map up to Roosevelt Dam and Roosevelt Reservoir, that's where it begins, and then it ends down by the Granite Reef Dam down by Mesa, and that water does not go any further. It just goes to the city or goes to irrigation for the crops, which what few we have left in the valley. But the valley used to be an agriculture hub because of the Salt River.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and water is a major concern in Arizona, like entirely. I mean, like we had an insanely dry winter. Like the precipitation up north in the mountains was like record low, like 150-year record lows. And I know that anybody in the Mountain West or on the West Coast can attest to the fact that like every state west of the Mississippi kind of got starved of precipitation this winter. And that's going to really, really affect the water levels in the reservoirs and everything, because there's no snow melt now. Like, I mean, Flagstaff, I think, is normally getting feet and feet and feet of snow, and they may have gotten, I don't know, Ben, what, like 4 total, something like that. I think
total, yeah.
over like the course of the entire winter. So
yeah, this summer's fire season is not going to be fun.
It's going to be nuts. I'm already talking to some friends of mine that do wildland firefighting, and they're already anticipating one of the most brutal fire seasons that the state's ever seen this summer, with lightning strikes and brush fires and Mexican campers burning national forests down with their terrible camping ethics. But
you guys have to worry about Antifa setting fires out there?
I don't think so. Our Antifa doesn't seem as militant as other states, thank God. I will say, anecdotally, in 2020, during the BLM riots and the Summer of Love and all that stuff, I had multiple friends in the Phoenix area whose neighborhoods were specifically called out by name of this is where, on Antifa Twitter and Antifa Facebook groups and stuff, because they were still able to operate completely in the clear on Facebook and stuff at that time. We're calling out these neighborhoods these are the places that we're going to go in and kind of tear shit up, and nothing ever happened. And then even the handful of demonstrations that did take place in Arizona during 2020, Scottsdale Fashion Square was one. They smashed a few plate glass windows and broke some things and set some fires.
Don't forget the geniuses during COVID who tried to block I-10 from Tucson.
Yeah. But what I will say is Arizona law enforcement has a long and proud tradition of don't fuck with us, pardon my French. And Phoenix PD, as political as it has become, because it's in a, like, you know, the police commissioner is an appointed position by whomever, the day-to-day officer, like the beat cops, do not play those games, and neither does our city councils or our mayor or even our more liberal governor, and especially not the sheriff's office in Maricopa County. They have a very good track record of putting things down right away and making sure that there's not any real civil unrest. I mean, the only videos that you see out of Phoenix, as big as we are, I think we're like number 5 in population in cities in the United States. It's something like that. We're in the top 10. And even during the Summer of Love, in the height of the George Floyd riots, when they had them planned, our law enforcement showed out in force, and as soon as like more than 50 people took to the streets with masks and like banners and whatever else, they got pepperballed and tear gassed into disbursement within like 45 minutes before they caused like any public property damage. And it was glorious to see. But I don't foresee the Antifa menace, our communists, being very bad. And then it's interesting too, then in Avalon, you might be able to weigh in on this, what your opinion is, because it just came to me. It's like in LA, right, you have like the La Raza shit that happened a few months ago, and we have not necessarily similar demographics to LA, but we have like a similar demographic problem to LA, but we haven't seen any of like the large scale kind of like solidarity, like I'm Mexican and this is stolen land, give it back type
no, like the most
arrogant shows of force.
Yeah, occasionally you'll see him on the, like, back when that first started, the beginning of, in the middle of last summer, was you kind of see like half a dozen or a dozen, maybe 2 dozen of them just on a street corner with some signs. They never did anything.
Yeah.
They don't burn cars, they don't they won't start
having
stuff.
been in all 3 parties at one point and being quite experienced in my earlier years, I will say that a lot of the people like that tend to be women, the you stole our land people, and a lot of the more will I say sign holders, chanters, no kings people, let's call them that.
Yeah.
They tend to be older Gen X liberals and boomers who, they live in their boomer truth regime and everything that comes with it. Most of them are well intentioned, but it's like the inverse boomer dad phenomenon, except it's liberal boomer dad.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can say or do, right? It's like the why not? You're just it's hopeless.
Yeah, you're talking to the TV and the TV can't hear you and doesn't care.
Exactly.
Yes.
And one more little tidbit, NotMeNotYou, is I have contacts in Turning Point USA out here in Phoenix, and obviously like the headquarters is in Tempe, which is like the home of ASU. I was at Charlie Kirk's memorial service and then at America Fest last year rather, in December. And I went to the memorial like when it was getting a ton of publicity for like tons of people showing out and like taking to the street and doing like dedicating stuff. And there was a massive mural and like memorial outside of the headquarters where people were coming and like laying crosses and flowers and well wishes for like the family and the kids and for Charlie and Turning Point, which is really great and awesome. I mean, Turning Point, for whatever you want to think about it and whatever your opinions are, they have done decent work. And I can tell you anecdotally, every single 20-something or teenager that I know that is affiliated directly with Turning Point USA is far more based than any of the leadership would let on. Like they are consistently counseled by leadership to like, hey, watch your optics because you're getting a little spicy there, you know what I mean? Every other week they're trying to keep a leak of like Holocaust denial or something happening from their group chats. But to that, the point I'm trying to make is like even then you didn't see any large-scale protests or large-scale like leftist activism going on at Turning Point headquarters. And then even when like Trump comes to town or Vance comes to town during the election, I went to a Vance rally back in like October. There was like 5 protesters, period. And like I said, our law enforcement does a good job of like, hey, if Vance is going to be on this college campus at this like speaking engagement or something, like we're going to have SWAT and like deputies or officers like cordon this area off. And if anybody's very obviously a leftist, they just politely but firmly be like, hey, you're moving and you're going to go across the street where you can hold a sign. But even then, only like 30 ever turn out. So Arizona's purple, they say, but given the fraud that happened in 2020 and how solidly we swung red in 2024, I'm not entirely convinced of that. And I don't think that our leftists are quite as militant, at least on the ground level, as they are elsewhere, which is encouraging because it's less troublesome for the Jane and Joe public. But it is easy to lull yourself into a sense of security living in an area where like the leftists haven't been radicalized fully yet. Like your Democrat neighbor doesn't want to kill your kids yet, you know, like the Sam Hyde line, you know, that tap the sign real quick. Like they may not be that far yet, but they will get there eventually. So we're still fighting the good fight out here.
I will douse some of your fire, but only because I try to be an objective realist. I actually, as with the position with the left, I'm wholeheartedly in agreement. Most of the city's issues really stem from internal corruption within Phoenix, which is horrifically bad. Anyone who's been paying attention to what's been going on with the mayor and the governor for the last basically decade understands what a complete fucking shit show it has been. I mean, the governorship's basically just being held hostage while she's out to lunch. I mean, it's hilariously bad. But I will posit that yes, our demographics are challenging because there are so many people here now. And it's worth saying, but the Hispanic population, there's I will say just 3 general cohorts. Useless semi-conscious street shitters who just ruin fucking everything. There's I can't remember what Peter Q called them, but the people who've been here for like 5 generations and they can't tell what they are. Are they Mexican? Are they Hispanic? Are they white? Like they don't just fucking know. They just exist to consume and whatever. They seem to have lost all purpose. And then unfortunately the smallest cohort is what I will say is trad adjacent. They tend to be Catholic, almost like ranchero types. They want a small property, 3 to 5 kids, and a horse, and they're willing to work themselves to the bone to get it.
Yeah, and I will say a lot of those people, especially the younger guys that I've run into, like people from Texas that might be listening, can probably concur with this, especially Southern Texas. You do get some of that like Tejano influence with your Mexicans, where it's like they've been around since statehood. Their family's been in the same general area since statehood, so they're not immigrants by any real metric. Their family really has been here since like the beginning of the state, and they are like heritage American is a broad term. I hesitate to use that, but they are American and they don't see themselves as Mexican. They're like, yeah, dude, I'm a tan American, but like fuck these illegals. You know what I mean? Like, some of those based guys that I know, some of the most like radical deport everyone, put them in camps guys that I know, that some work even for Border Patrol and DHS, are like 10th generation Mexicans that like their families lived in Arizona forever, but they are but their family was Mexican. They just lived in Arizona, and then it became a territory, and then it became a state, and they've been here forever. But all they are is Mexican, you know. And it's a small portion of them, but you do run into them every now and then. So like the trope of like the based brown is a real thing here. It's just you know, not necessarily a needle in a haystack, but not quite far removed from it.
And it's very subtle.
Avalon?
I was saying, and they're pretty subtle about it. They don't go about displaying it, unlike the other two who A, right, is confused, or B, they don't give a fuck, right? Like, I'll put the Mexican flag on my F-250, and also I'll dump all my chemical garbage on public land, because who's going to stop me?
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame to hear that the based ones are the minority, but I mean, that's always the case, regardless of what race you're in. This actually,
of course,
makes me wonder: have you guys had the? And I have to ask this every episode: have you had the Jeep Menace incursions into your major population cities?
Oh,
bad.
brother. It's bad. Go ahead, Ben. Take that away. Ben, you know as well as I do, it's bad.
Yeah.
Wait.
Go ahead.
I don't have much to add to this other than my trip last year to Dallas. I will describe it as every non-American brown I met made me question my sanity and what the fuck they were doing here. And I think the final tipping point for me was outside the Cortez Sister Mountains. It's these two mountains near the border of Texas. There was a bus full of Jeeps, and I was, taking pictures with my family, and one walked by me and I said hi, introduced myself just to be polite. And long story short, while talking to him, they were H-1Bs. He made over $200,000, and like, he just actively insulted my country. Like, there was zero pretense of him basically just coming here, bringing over family members, looting as much money as possible, and then going home. It honestly, it greatly upset me.
Many such cases. Go ahead, Ben. You had some of your own horror.
So yeah, here Intel made a huge investment about 10 years ago, and now that facility is fully up and running, and they have basically transformed Chandler into from what used to be a almost upper middle class suburb, which is great place, into there's a lot there now, just to put it mildly. ASU is overrun with them in Chinese. The TSMC, it's a
TSMC,
chip fabrication. Yeah, they're the guys from Taiwan. When that one goes online, that's an enormous facility. I believe it's the biggest one in the world for a chip manufacturer. When that thing goes online, I mean, it's going to show up there. Phoenix in general has gone. So, kind of backtracking to 2008, part of the reason why we had such a big bust in the housing was basically it was guys building houses for guys. Like the home builders were buying the houses. Well, now since then they readjusted everything and went pretty tech heavy. And Phoenix and Arizona in general is a pretty unique place because we don't really have natural disasters. It's a very geologically sound area. So it's really attractive to these tech companies that, are going to pour $3 billion into a facility out here. But they just all happen to bring their baggage with them. I mean, I've always wondered why they don't just, make their own little colleges or tech schools right outside their campus to get high achieving high school American kids to do it. I'm sure there's a tax write-off somewhere in there for them to do it, but no, they just keep bringing in Mumbai.
Well, somebody in those companies has crunched those numbers and decided that they could save even more money by hiring unqualified degree mill jeets over actually training up people who can get things done. I mean, it's just the entire economy is fake and gay, and it's a real shame that our cities have to suffer and our people have to suffer while the shell game goes on.
Yeah, I will say Ben has a good insight on that, being in the east side of the metro area and having seen that deteriorate. I work in the data center industry, in the construction of them. I know I'm the great Satan. The graph will grant me a swift death, unlike you plebs that will be tortured for your life essence. But that being said, I will say in every single data center property that I have worked in this area, it is entirely populated. If it's not a tradesman, if they're a salaried employee from whatever vendor actually occupies the data center when it's finished being built, it's a Jeep. It's some form of Jeep, be it Pakistani or Sikh or Indian or whatever it might be. And then even more than that is our trucking. I wish that we have a guy in our chapter that's been a over the road trucker long haul for a very long time. Done it all, basically certed in just about everything. And the absolute horror stories that this man can tell and has told about the trucking that comes through in Arizona and the job market for commercial CDL driving is insane. If you thought that California 40% or 60% or something around there of all of their CDL licenses being issued to foreigners, and the majority of those being from the subcontinent, was bad, Arizona is as bad. I mean, he told us these people, these H-1B or these CDL drivers that they bring in from India or whatever, will literally cut holes in the bottom of their truck's firewall to defecate through, and then mechanics will refuse to work on them because they're shitting right over the drive shaft, and it flings it all over the undercarriage of the truck.
Oh fuck,
bro! I swear.
That's amazing.
I swear on my life that these Indians will do team driving where they have 3 to a cab or 2 to a cab in a sleeper cab, and they'll have one guy driving, one guy sleeping, one guy as a passenger, and then when the driver gets to his 8-hour or 10-hour driving limit or whatever the DOT says, that's as much as you can drive, he goes into the sleeper, and then whoever was sleeping, there's a cutout in the passenger seat floorboard that they will shit through. And then if a mechanic, a local heavy diesel mechanic, sees an Indian pull up with his rig, there is a large portion of them that will refuse to work on it. They'll be like, I ain't touching it, because they know that the undercarriage of that truck is coated in human shit. I will go before God, with God as my witness, that is 100% true. And I've heard that corroborated by 5 different people now. And that is
these people, man, they're animals. That they have to go. That is just that's too much,
it's insane.
Man.
Referring to them as people is a little generous there.
Yeah, that's a bold statement in and of itself. Would that it were.
Well, so just as a follow-up on that, have you guys noticed that they started running for local office?
No, actually, I haven't.
Not where I live. Not where I live. I'm sure, I haven't seen their names too much, to be honest. I try. Mostly I kind of focus on locally, and I live in kind of a small town south of Phoenix. But even in passing, looking at political signs or trying to keep up on other local stuff in the broader Phoenix metro area, I haven't really seen any yet. But I do anticipate that changing, and I think if it hasn't happened already, the place it will happen, the ground zero for that will be Chandler. Because of the tech.
Chandler, Gilbert, or Mesa, for sure.
Yeah, I'd say I would put money on it being Chandler.
I would too, because it's got enough of the outskirts of Chandler being like data center central and
Yeah, and
like
that's the most
H1B
mature.
central. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the most mature tech industry area of the city.
I mean, it's happening
For
in
sure.
other areas of the country, and everyone's familiar now with Dearborn, Michigan, which
Hmm.
we don't have to go over again here, but those sorts of things are coming wherever these parasites get a foothold. Do you think that the people of Phoenix are kind of aware of this, or is this something that they're going to be sleepwalking into?
So I actually have a. This might be a hot take. You can ask my chapter, my co-chapterees what their take is on it. But I think that the average right-wing, like Republican voter in the Phoenix metro area is a little bit more radical than the average in the United States. And I say that, obviously it's anecdotal, but pretty much every young person, or even if they're not a young person, from Gen X to Gen Alpha, just about every man that I meet, and I say men because the women across the entire country have just been one-shotted by whatever propaganda they were exposed to as a kid. But the men that I run into, if they are Republican, they are the one thing they're incredibly bullish on across the board is like Islamic influence, and on even if they make allowances for like Mexican immigration and Mexican influence, because it's been so long standing and they've been kind of like boiled, like a frog boiled in water, they're kind of just, they grew up around it and they're used to it because it's always been a problem here. The Indian and the Muslim thing is a big thing for all of the at least white Republican men that I've met across the board. And I think you see that reflected in a lot of the messaging in like some of the local Turning Point chapters in the colleges and community colleges around here. I think you see that reflected in a lot of the local like campaign messaging, where it's kind of like a Randy Fine-esque without the Zionism, where they're talking about like they're super based about like Islam, but then whatever. Like they're terrible on other things, but they're great on Islam, like the Islamification, or like the Greg Abbotts of Arizona, where like the Islamification of Arizona is a big ticket issue for them, but they're willing to overlook some of like the seasonal farm work or the like, oh well, these illegal immigrants that have been working for forever, like maybe they can stay. Like they're soft on certain issues, but they're hardline on others. And I also don't see a huge block forming in Arizona the way that it has in other states of specifically like Islamic actors or even Indian actors. But again, like as Ben had said, I think the Indian one is forthcoming, like the H1B mafia, like the Patel cartel is real here for sure, because we do have a lot of tourist trap towns, and just about every small motel and small town Arizona that you find is going to be owned by a Pajit. But I think that as a block, Indians are so small that their influence hasn't been realized yet. And I think Islam is one of those ones that there's kind of a barrier to entry because people here are largely resistant to it, even if they can't exactly formulate why. I think the biggest issue demographically and electorally that we have is illegal immigration, and then legal immigration from this, like the South, and then Western migration from California and other places where, like, before California became as bad as it is, Arizona has been solidly red for decades and decades. And the first time that you saw it turn purple was only a few election cycles ago, when the California immigration boom started happening, and you see the same trend with
It's
Idaho.
gotten really bad
and,
since COVID.
yeah, exactly. Like all of these people in California that if they had the funds to move and to sell in a bear market during COVID, to, if they had the funds and they were like stable enough to sell during the COVID bear market, and to sell their house in the Bay Area or in San Diego or in LA County and move, or in Orange County and move to Arizona, a lot of the people that did, they weren't moving because of ideological reasons, which a lot of people that I've run into did. Like, to their credit, a lot of Californians that I run into moved for ideological reasons. Like, they're like, California got too liberal and shitty, so I moved to Arizona because it's more Republican and I'm a Republican. But the vast majority, I would say, moved for strictly cynical economical reasons, where they're like, hey, I'm trying to get out of this state because I'm getting priced out, but I still like what California does, like socially and all of this other stuff, and we're getting a lot of that. And honestly,
that's happened to a few homes in my neighborhood already. I live in a rural area, and there's these 2 homes that have like nice casitas and a small garage. I think the worst offender has been bought and sold 6 times in the last 5 years. I remember when it got sold and the family moved out. The guy from California came over like 2022. He fixed it up, lived in it for 6 to 9 months, and sold it for like $400,000 when he got it for $200,000. And then another guy from California bought that house, and he, even though it was just remodeled, they tore it down and remodeled it again, and added even more stuff, and then he put it on the market and sold it. And now it's been inflated up to $850,000 from its original $200,000.
Yeah, I mean,
price.
that sounds as fake and gay as everything else.
No one will buy it now. It's unpurchasable.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, NotMeNotYou, Arizona is kind of like the emergency landing strip for people who have enough money to leave wherever they want to get out of, but not quite enough to get to where they want to go. And so then they come here, take advantage of our markets or our like economic, like either prosperity or our positive economic outlook, and then sell for a profit to get closer to where they want to go. It's kind of like a pit stop on the Californians' trail of tears, so to speak, to be like, well, I'll move to Arizona for a few years, invest in this property that was listed for $350,000 that I bought for cash, resell in 3 to 5 years for $1 million, and then I'll take that $1 million and I'll move somewhere like Austin, where like the culture suits me better, kind of thing. And I think that's a trend line. I think it's sort of on the downturn, because housing now in Arizona has skyrocketed as a result, obviously. But I still think the effects haven't yet been fully realized. But I don't want it to say like it's doom and gloom in our state. I think my friends here can weigh in themselves, but I think that Arizona has a bright future ahead of it. I don't want to say like, oh, I'm not like bullish on America, or I'm not bearish on America or on Arizona. I don't think that we're seeing the kind of downfall of the state. I don't think the state is lost. I think that it's still a great place to live. It's still a great place to raise a family, depending on where you live. And I still think that like our future is bright. And certainly that's what our chapter, the Painted Sky Society, that's what we're trying to do is brighten the futures of anybody that's involved with us, or even our chapter members, or even anybody that's adjacent or a friend of the chapter, is just try to, build that community, build that positive outlook, and kind of contribute to the overall well-being of the people involved. So I wanted to say that, like, I don't view our state as a lost cause, because it sounded,
I think a lot of it comes down to the water politics, because our water is heavily
which is real,
ag. It's like 80% or something stupid. And I think a lot of the coming fight, and there's going to be a fight for water, is going to be, I think we're going to have to cut a deal with the technologists and industrialists to corner out the agricultural use, because most of Arizona's water is slotted for agricultural reasons. In northern Arizona, maybe that makes some sense, but if you take a look at our really, it all just goes back to when all these laws were written, and they used hilariously fruitful years as waterline tables for a lot of this stuff, so none of it has made any sense for a century.
Mhm.
Including the Interstate Water Compact, which California basically can just tell everyone else to fuck off. I don't expect Congress to step in and help us with that one either.
Yeah, we have the same kind of fight facing us as the agrarian South and the industrialist North did during the Civil War. The difference is that it's over water instead of, states' rights or slavery or whatever you want to chalk it up to. It's like we're going to have to find a happy medium between the guys growing cotton and alfalfa and the builders that want to, put up another 500 single-family homes or a data center.
Yep.
Well, we're swiftly running out of time, but I would like to get some white pills from both Ben and Avalon before we move on to the super chats.
All right.
Yeah, white pill us on the future of Arizona.
I think that the real hard fight will be probably in Tucson overall. I think that as time goes on, that we'll be able to root out not all of this corruption. I mean, a lot of it exists because, let's be honest, Arizona's been a neocon stronghold for decades. Their strength is finally waning, and they're finally dying off. As the day of the pillow approaches, a lot of stuff that's being held down by sometimes treasonous boomers and sometimes well-meaning boomers will become available. New agents can step in, and fulfill communities' needs. Arizona is not at all a lost cause. It's just going to require a lot of work to get it back on track. Phoenix, I think it's always going to remain a kind of purple area in general, just due to the mass and type of people who live in the city center, especially with, just like any other major city. But if you take a good look at the burbs, and especially anywhere else outside Phoenix, it's just wall-to-wall red. A lot of it's going to come down to messaging and making sure that, county, making sure that people can. Oh, hold on, I have a crying child. But long story short, it's going to come down to getting people to step up for their community and just do what they can to help their neighbors.
So, Ben, is that what we should expect from the Painted Sky Society? That you guys are going to be focusing a lot on community building?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I love it here. It's great. I'm one of the only native Arizonans in our chapter. Much like the rest of the state, we fits the demographics for the rest of the state.
Had to out me as an immigrant right off the bat.
That's one of our but that is one of our initiatives, is to get everybody kind of more community oriented, and part of that is we have a book club in our chapter that our very first book was about the history of the Arizona Rangers. Not a lot of people know we even had the Arizona Rangers. We kind of do now, but they mostly just run security at rodeos and stuff. But it was a legitimate thing that dates back to the territorial days. And that's kind of what we're looking at as far as for the chapter specifically, is kind of get everybody into the history of the state a lot. It's a really interesting state. I get that we're the youngest, of the continental U.S. We're the 48th state. But there's still a lot of interesting history. I mean, there's laws that go back to the Civil War that we're not allowed to hunt camels because the Confederacy was going to come out here and try to train camels for desert warfare, but they found out it was too rocky, and they walk on sand. Just little things like that. The difference in geology and geography all throughout the state is incredible, and that's why my focus is more on the historical side and getting everybody brought up to speed on that, and then we can from there you see where you live. I found out that where I live there was 4 train robberies in 1908, and it's interesting. There's just interesting things all over the place, and when you learn those kind of things, you can kind of start getting motivated and involved in your local community about, even teaching, other people in your area about what's going on here and the history of the place. And it's not just a Chipotle and a Starbucks that was built 4 years ago.
Well, that's great. I'm looking forward to not just the next time you guys are on the chapter house, probably early next year, but to see what you guys have been up to, but also just in general, that kind of outlook on what you should be doing is pretty wonderful. We're gonna hit the super chats real quick, and we're gonna take them in reverse order for the first time ever, because the second question, or the first in this case, demands some explanation. King Arthur for $11.83. A salute from Montana and the WLL. That's a real American right there. You've got some friends up north. And Melon for $3, and this was the first question of the night. Schizo question: do the locals have any cryptid stories?
Oh, I have some skinwalker stories, my friend.
Up by the Navajo reservation, up in the northeast. You get a lot of them up there.
Yes, and I have my own encounter with a cryptid, if you want to call it that. I call it a demon because Christ is king, and I know that it was a demon in fact. However, my native friend believes it was a skinwalker, and I did tell that story over firelight at the camping trip that Ben unfortunately missed, but about a half dozen of our guys were able to go on back in what, February, I think it was. So yeah, we definitely have our share of cryptid stories in Arizona, and none of them are pleasant, which seems to be a trend in America. They're never gnomes or fairies here.
American forests are horrifying. I mean, that's great. I know you're whetting Melon's appetite here. So, are you guys gonna be putting on any local events that Melon might be able to show up to and hear it directly from your mouth?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can speak to that. We are trying to currently plan a pretty big camping trip with the other Southwestern chapters, California, New Mexico, Nevada, and another one with New Mexico, specifically on like the eastern side of Arizona or in the like far west of New Mexico. And we're working towards getting like a family-friendly camping trip planned. If not this Labor Day, then sometime later on in the spring next year, to get the wives and the kids and all the men in the chapter together to kind of meet, and then everybody hang out, and the men can go talk politics around the fire and share scary stories, and the wives can talk about how annoying it is that the men sit around campfires and talk about who and and drink too much around the fire. But we are very much as a chapter trying to find every chance that we get to beat the heat and get into the woods and swap stories and have a good time. So if you're interested, go ahead and email our Proton Man. We'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. And the last question that everyone gets asked: if you were to give your brothers any piece of unsolicited advice. Oh, we got one more super chat. Eagle Scout Warlord getting in under the wire for $5. Mount Graham, next to where I grew up, has the Vatican's official observatory telescope near the peak. I can see it from my front yard. That's really cool.
That's incredible, and shout out to you, my friend. Mount Graham is my favorite place to camp in the entire state of Arizona, and it's a little-known gem. Very, very, very few people that I've ever met in the state locally have even heard of it, let alone been up it and camped in it. And if you hit me up, I'd be happy someday to share my perfect camp spot with you. But let me know.
Awesome. All right. So one piece of unsolicited, or in this case, solicited advice you could give to your brothers.
You can take that, Ben.
I'd say just keep the faith and keep pushing. Don't let anything get you down. I mean, I know it's easy to black pill right now with a lot of, all this nonsense going on, but just keep it going. We're part of this, we all joined this club for, a sense of purpose, to just meet other people who have a similar, outlook on life as us. And we're supposed to sit there and we're supposed to build each other up. So continue to build each other up by building, you build yourself up, you build each other up. And then, before you know it, you have a pretty good squad of guys sitting around you.
Here. Amen to that.
Yeah. Amen. All right. Thank you, Priory of Avalon, Mr. Ben Wade, and Adam Standish, and all the members of the Painted Sky Society for another wonderful episode. Be sure to join us next week for Beauregard's Bayou Crew. And if you can't guess what state that's from, I can't help you. Be sure to check out Pony Express Radio every Thursday at 8 p.m. and American Spirits for the Party Line every Monday at 9. Those are Eastern times. That is the superior time zone. Thank you all for joining us for the Old Glory Club.